Hello and Jai Shri Ram. As promised, I have come to explain the topic how to deal with comparison in the lives of teenagers and youth, taking examples from our scriptures. So today I will take some examples from Ramcharitmanas, and please look at it just like you look at storytelling. So storytelling is very interesting, and we have been doing it since our childhood. Our mothers told different stories to us, and we read different stories ourselves, whether by choice or in school, and we watch different stories on TV and mobile in various forms like movies or serials or shows. So just look at that way only what I am going to tell you, and then the stories will interest you more, and don't take it with a very heavy head. Just keep it easy, and because I assume that you don't know too much about these stories from Ramcharitmanas or the Puranas or Gita and all, so I will try to introduce you to the stories wherever it is needed. If it is not needed, I will not expand the stories. And if you don't know the character, then what is Google there for? Just Google who are the characters, because it might not be necessary to introduce each and every character, because then it will be too confusing and too long explanation. So we will just wander from the main topic. So I hope it's clear. Relax and enjoy the session, because you will be hearing small stories, and there will be quite a variation. And yes, so let's start with the expedition or adventure. So talking about comparison, if you have not watched my part 1 of the session, then please do watch it, because I will be looking at comparison from the same point of view, but will be picking examples only from scriptures. So let's start. The first heading is when you compare yourself to others. So I will be taking the story where there is sage Vashisht. So sage Vashisht had a cow. It was a miracle cow, and her name was Nandini. She was the daughter of the miracle cow, that is Kamdhenu. So Kamdhenu is supposed to give you anything that you think of or desire of. So it's very interesting. We all want to possess that cow, don't we? But the problem is that Kamdhenu always only a sage or a saint has the right to keep the Kamdhenu, because he would never use it for his own selfish motives. So one day King Kaushik comes to Vashisht's ashram, and sage Vashisht thinks that I should welcome the king in the way that is befitting a royal member. So he takes help of Nandini and arranges for a grand warm welcome for the king. The king is surprised that this poor sage who lives in a hut, how does he have so much of wealth and prosperity? Even being a king, I could not have arranged for this kind of grand welcome. So he asks sage Vashisht that what is the secret, and sage Vashisht honestly tells him about the cow Nandini. But then greed comes into the mind of King Kaushik. He says that I am the king and I am supposed to keep that cow, not you. And when we are greedy but we don't want to express it, then we give reasons to justify ourselves. So he said that I am the king, I have to look for my people, and this cow will assist me more in doing that. But sage Vashisht replies that Kamdhenu never lives with a king, she always lives with a saint. And King Kaushik was very angry. He tried to snatch Kamdhenu, but sage Vashisht had great powers of penance, and before his power of penance or Brahmatej, King Kaushik was finally defeated, and that made him think. He compared himself to sage Vashisht, and that made him think, I am a Kshatriya, I am the king, but I don't have the power which matches anywhere to this sage who is a Brahmin. And then he concludes that what is the use of being a Kshatriya? A Brahmin is the most superior, and he doesn't wait for the next birth, and he decides that with the power of penance I will become a Brahmarshi, that is the most powerful Brahmin in this birth only. And yes, that inspires him to do such a difficult penance that he does become a Brahmarshi in the same birth where he was not a Brahmin by birth, and even Lord Brahma called him Brahmarshi. But then we see till here it is very inspiring that he took the comparison in the right way as he should have. But the problem, there are some side effects too. There was a king by the name Trishanku, and he wanted to go to heaven before his death, that is in the same mortal body, and he went to sage Vashisht, but sage Vashisht said that I cannot break the universal laws, and no one can go to heaven with this mortal body. So he refused. So Trishanku tried to find out who could send him to heaven, and then he knew that sage Vishwamitra and sage Vashisht had rivalry, and so he went to sage Vishwamitra. When Vishwamitra asked him, and I forgot to mention one important point, that the same King Kaushik who became Brahmarshi, after becoming Brahmarshi, his name was sage Vishwamitra. So we are here talking about the same sage Vishwamitra. So he inquired from Trishanku, and he came to know that Vashisht had refused to send him to heaven. So he decided that it is the best time to make Vashisht inferior in the eyes of the world. And he said, I will send you to heaven. And he really did so. He had that great powers. But when Trishanku went to the heavens, the deities there, the Devtas, they threw him out of heaven, and he was falling head down, and he cried for help. Sage Vishwamitra, what have you done to me? See, I am falling. Save me. And then sage Vishwamitra holds them in mid-air, and he says that I will build a new heaven for you. The deities are terrified that because they knew that sage Vishwamitra could build a new heaven. So they went to pacify him. They praised him. And see, after hearing their praises, his ego is satisfied, and he decides that he will not make a new heaven. But what about the Shanku? He was left hanging there in mid-air. And these stories from the Puranas and the scriptures, don't take them superficially. Just understand what is the message behind them. So as you can visualize that King Trishanku is hung with his head down mid-air, and from his mouth saliva is falling down, and it is said that this saliva formed a river which is known as Karnasha. So even if you touch the water of Karnasha, all your virtues or punyas are destroyed. And we have heard about Ganga, that if you take bath in Ganga or touch Ganga or even remember Ganga without even going near to it, all your sins are destroyed. So see, this is a stark comparison. And what is the reason behind them? Behind it? It is, what is the result of the comparison that you did? You achieved new heights, but your intentions were not pure. It were to make someone sound inferior before you. So that is the side effect of comparison when the purpose is not good. I hope it is clear. Now let's jump to the other story. So I hope you are finding it interesting. Now we will read about another I am reading and you will listen about another sage, and that is sage Pashuram. We all know about Lord Ram. So in the Swamvar of Sitaji, when Lord Ram broke the bow of Lord Shiva, then Pashuramji comes to know, and Lord Shiva is the guru of sage Pashuram. He is very angry and he comes to the courtroom of King Janak, inquiring that who has broken the bow of his guru, that is Lord Shiva. And when he came to know that Lord Ram's name was also Ram, as Parshuram's name is also Ram, with the prefix of Parshu, but it has Ram, then he compares and he is so adamant that only one person should have the name Ram. And he compares Lord Ram with himself, and he says to him that you are in no way a match to me. Then why do you keep this name Ram? Either abandon this name or fight with me, and then we will see who is superior, and then the one who wins will keep the name Ram. So heated arguments take place between Lakshmanji, who is the brother of Lord Ram, and Parshuram, because Lord Ram in himself is very polite and very modest and very kind. So Lakshmanji has to take the side of Lord Ram, and in the end we see. But before telling about the end, just visualize that two great people, one is a sage and one is a Kshatriya warrior, that is Lakshmanji. Such heated arguments take place between them that everybody is terrified that today everybody present there in the courtroom is going to die. But eventually we find that that doesn't happen. But why? Lord Ram did not fight with Parshuram. We see in the end Pashuram's intellect, mind and heart are transformed with Lord Ram's modesty, politeness, kindness. He is not willing to fight and prove himself superior to Parshuram. And this brings a great change in Pashuram. And in the end, and also I want to mention one fact, that Lord Ram is known as Gyan. That is, he is the ultimate intelligence, and that ultimate intelligence transforms the intellect of sage Parshuram, because knowledge is not intellect, and unless intellect converts into ultimate intelligence, then we cannot get rid of our confusions. So Parshuram gets a clarity that who is superior, and he surrenders before Lord Ram, and then he walks away with a happy heart. So we see that in this courtroom, Sage Vishwamitra was also present and Sage Pashuram was also present. Sage Vishwamitra had earlier with the company of Lord Ram had already realized that all these comparisons were of no use, and Sage Parshuram also realizes this now. And Sage Vashisht, if you remember in the first story, Vishwamitra and Sage Vashisht were kind of rivals. But we see here that all three of these sages with the company of Lord Ram understand the true meaning of comparison, and then all the three of them are at peace, I would say. And when they understand that when Lord Ram is there, he is the most superior, and then the meaning of comparison itself dissolves. It resolves. There is no comparison now. Now we will take an example when Sugriv compares himself to his brother Bali. So if you don't know, Sugriv and Bali were monkey brothers. There is a change of lighting here because electricity is off. So bear with the dim lights here. So they were monkeys, and Bali was the king of Kishkindha. That is the name of their kingdom. So Bali was a great warrior, so great that he had defeated Ravan. Oh yes, Ravan, who was killed by Lord Ram. Bali had already defeated him, and he had also defeated Sahasrarjun. But unlike Bali, Sugriv was very fearful and weak, and we can even say that he was a coward. Due to some incidences in their lives, I won't expand them now. So Bali became Sugriv's greatest enemy, and he ran after the life of Sugriv. And Sugriv did a realistic comparison because he realized that his caliber was no match for Bali, and the best way is to find a way that he could run away from Bali and hide himself somewhere and wait for the right time or the right opportunity. And later on, Lord Ram comes, he befriends Sugriv, and in the end, Bali is being killed by Lord Ram, and Sugriv gets the throne of Kishkindha. And Sugriv is the one who helps Lord Ram in finding Sita ji, and then the battle takes place between Lord Ram and Ravan, where Ravan is killed. So see that Sugriv did a realistic comparison. He did not act out of impulse, and we can see the same Sugriv who was so fearful and coward and kept on running from every single problem. He became the minister of Lord Ram. So comparison is also very good sometimes. And now when we are talking of comparison, there are some incidences where we should not compare ourselves to certain people. And I will tell you a new story for this purpose. So you must have heard about Sage Narad. We have seen him in shows saying Narayan, 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 Narayan. Yes, the same Naradji. So I will also not expand too much on this story. So Naradji was sitting in Samadhi. If you don't know about Samadhi, just Google it. So Indra Devta the god of heaven became terrified that Naradji is doing so much penance to snatch the throne of heaven from him. So he sent Kamdev, who is the god of love, and Kamdev went with the heavenly fairies or apsaras so that he could break the samadhi of Naradji. But he failed, and cutting the story short, Naradji should have been angry on him, that is Kamdev, but Naradji won over his anger and he was not angry on Kamdev. And Naradji was not driven away by lust because he did not pay any heed to the beauty of the heavenly fairies or apsaras, and he won over greed, that is, he did not want the throne of heaven. So in short, he won over Kam, Krodh and Lobh, that is lust, anger and greed. But the bad thing that happens in his life, which was responsible for some events which should not have taken place, it happens that Lord Shiva is famous, that he has won over all the shortcomings like I have mentioned here. So Naradji compared himself to Lord Shiva, and he thinks that if I go to Shiva and tell him about my victory, he will feel jealous. And Naradji goes on there, and then the series of events start where eventually Naradji realizes his mistakes, but he had to face certain turbulences in his life. So remember that if you have a momentary victory over some evil or some weaknesses, then don't compare the one who is the eternal victor of those evils or shortcomings. So now we will continue with the character of Sage Narad. We will expand it more, and now we will look at it with the perspective of when someone else compares you to someone else. So telling the background in brief, Naradji wanted to marry a very beautiful lady by the name of Vishwamohini, who was a princess. And yes, you might be thinking that just now I have told you how he did not pay any heed to the beautiful apsaras, but here he wanted to marry a beautiful princess Vishwamohini. So that is a long story, but don't just forget about it and concentrate here. So he wanted to marry Vishwamohini, but he knew that Lord Vishnu is very beautiful. He is the most beautiful in the whole universe, the most handsome. So Naradji asked him to give his beauty for some time to Naradji so that he could go to the Swamvar of Vishwamohini. The Swamvar is where I don't know what do we say. If you want to marry someone, the males go there and the female has to choose one of them, whomever she likes. Sometimes there are some challenges that one has to pass, and the one who has passed all the challenges becomes eligible to marry that female. But sometimes it happens the female has to choose on her own will and there are no challenges. The same thing happened in the Swamvar of Vishwamohini. So Naradji thought, if I look my best, that is only possible when I look the best. And that is why he asked for Lord Vishnu's beauty. And it's very weird that Lord Vishnu makes him monkey faced, but Naradji did not know about that because he went straight away to the Swamvar. he did not look into the mirror. And that was his biggest folly. We can also say that Naradji had such great trust in Lord Vishnu that he did not look into the mirror. But there is also a background of this story where Lord Vishnu tells Narad that I will do only that which is best for you, just like a doctor doesn't give a Upadhyay or a food which will harm the health of the patient even if the patient asks repeatedly for it. So Naradji did not understand that Lord Vishnu was indirectly saying that I will not do what you are asking me to do. So with a monkey face, Naradji goes to the Swamvar, and Vishnu Muni on seeing him is very angry, and she doesn't put the garland in Naradji's neck. So here now we will ignore the other part of the story, and we will see that there are two attendants of Lord Shiva, and in the Swamvar they are sitting on the right and on the left of Naradji, and they knew that Naradji is not aware that he has got a monkey face, and they keep praising him that what a beautiful face Lord Vishnu has given to Narad. And Naradji was like elated in pride that I am looking the most beautiful and handsome. But when Vishnu Muni doesn't even enter into the lane where Naradji was sitting, and she walks away and garlands Lord Vishnu as her husband, Naradji was furious with anger and he felt cheated. And then those attendants that we called Gan in Hindi, they say, go and look your face in the mirror. If Naradji would have actually looked in a mirror, the results would have not been so bad. But what he does, he looks at his face in the nearby pond. And you will ask, what is the difference between a mirror or a pond? I am not talking about the physical difference. The difference is that if you look at a pond which has water, the water is never still. The winds have its effect on the water. The creatures that are living in the water have make it moving and dynamic and not static. And if you throw a piece of small rock, I don't know, if you throw a pebble in the water, then you will see the water is disturbed. So you can never see water stable in a pond or a river or a sea. So it is when Naradji looks at his face, he sees a monkey face, and then when he again looks into it, he sees his normal face. And which implies that when your mind is turbulent like the pond water or any water body, then you cannot look at the real picture. If Naradji had looked in a mirror, signifying that he had a peaceful mind where he could question himself that why did Lord Vishnu give me this monkey face, then he would have thought about it and prudence would have prevailed over him, and he would have known that Lord Vishnu is my only well-wisher, and whatever he has done for me will be for my own good. And let me tell you that what is the good that Lord Vishnu wanted for Narad. Narad was a sage, a saint, and it's just like I will tell you with an example. When later on Narad asks Lord Vishnu that why did you do this to me, then he says that it's just like when there is a small child in the family who is around 10 years or even less, and he sees a grand wedding in the house, and he also says that I also want to get married, then everybody laughs, but they don't accept his stubbornness if he does so, and they don't let him marry because he is a small child. Similarly, Naradji was a devotee of the Lord, and he was like a small child of the Lord, and the Lord did not want him to get involved in the troubles which he could not handle. So that is why all these events took place. So the moral of the story is that you have to do your introspection with a calm and clear and prudent mind, question, reason, and then only you can understand the problems and look for the solutions when you make a comparison or when someone else compares you. And we will understand this example better by taking another example. Yes, there are so many stories. Keep enjoying. King Dashrath was the father of Lord Ram, and he was the mighty king, and he was so powerful, so pious. He had all the qualities in him. And one day he was sitting in his courtroom, and everybody present in the courtroom was praising him. They were comparing him to the rest of the world and telling him how great he was. But what King Dashrath did, he took out a mirror and saw his face in the mirror, because he knew the mirror never lies. And in the mirror he saw that his crown was tilted, and then he straightened his crown and brought it in the middle. That is signifying that a king should not be tilted or biased before any person, situation or belief. He should be balanced, and that is why he balanced his crown, and the crown was covering his hair here. And so when he balanced it, he saw that white hair were peeping near to his ear, and Lord Shankaracharya said that white hair is the messenger of the Lord of Death, and death is certain. And when you have white hair, it means that the death is near. So it inspired King Dashrath to think that for how long can I be the Chakravarti Samrat or the greatest king? There has to be some day when I will go. So why not take a big decision which will be meaningful for me as well as others? And then he decides that he will crown Lord Ram as the future king of Ayodhya. So you can see that he made the best use of the comparison, and he made the best decision ever. Now we have more stories. That is a good news. So now we will take a different example, and I will tell you a background of that story. So when Sugriv sent all his monkey army in all the directions to search for Sita ji, because it was not known that where Sita ji was or where Ravan had taken Sita ji. So he sent his monkeys in all directions, and he had kept one condition, that I am giving you 1 month to look for Sita ji. If you come back before the time period of 1 month, even if you are not able to find Sita ji, then it's okay. But if you come after 1 month, without finding Sita ji, then you will be given the death punishment. So 1 month had passed, and these monkeys which were heading towards south, they did not get any clue about Sita ji. So they decided that anyhow we have to die, so why not die a death of respect. And they were on the shores of the sea, and they decided that they will give up their lives without having anything to eat or drink. So they sat there, and then they hear a fearful voice, not a fearful, they became fearful by hearing a voice, and that voice said that I will eat you all. And then they see that a big vulture comes out of a cave, and that was an old vulture, and the monkeys were in large numbers. They could have defeated him, but here they have lost their inner will, their inner power, so they feel very helpless and they are scared on hearing this. But Angad, remember two brothers, monkey brothers, Sugriv and Bali. So Angad was the son of Bali, and he also did a comparison here, and he said, see, there was another vulture by the name of Jatayu, but he gave his life so that he could save Sita ji from the clutches of Ravan. And see, this vulture wants to eat us all. Sampati was coincidentally the brother of Jatayu. And when he heard about his brother Jatayu, he came out of the cave. So, on hearing this comparison, there could also be a reaction that Sampati would have been furious with anger, and he would have eaten all the monkeys in a jiffy, because he would have felt very bad while being compared to his own brother in a bad way. But no, we don't see that result here. Sampati, on hearing this, tells them the story of his brother Jatayu and how his brother was virtuous and intelligent, and even he tells an incident where Jatayu seemed to be weak, but he took the right decision and saved himself so that he could use his powers for something big, that is not for self but something big that he could do for others, and that he did also. We will not go into that. So seeing Sampati, the monkeys noticed that he had no feathers. So Sampati told them that how his feathers were destroyed. And when we talk about the vultures, they have two big powers, that their eyesight is so developed, it is so precise, and yeah, that they can see things from a very far distance. While they are flying high in the sky, they can see dead bodies on the land. So that is their one strength. And then the second strength is their feathers are so strong that they can cover great heights. So his feathers were destroyed, and that is why he was living in the cave. But he had the power of seeing beyond the limits of anyone else, and he sat there and told the monkeys, I can see with my powerful eyes that Sita ji is sitting in Lanka under the tree by the name of Ashok. The monkeys, they tried to see, they rubbed their eyes, but they could not see anything beyond the vast ocean. But as soon as Sampati told them about the whereabouts of Sita ji, to their bewilderment they saw that he grew new feathers. And as I told you, if you don't believe the stories, don't think about it superficially. Think what message you can take out of it, and what message we get when we use our strengths to empower others. We grow new powers, like he grew new feathers. And then what he does, he himself became powerful, and then he empowers the monkeys. He says to them, have you forgotten who you are? You think you are mere monkeys? No, you are Lord Ram's messengers. And there is a irony here that I talked about the unique identification number or the code, and the irony is that he says you all have that unique identification code. That is, you all are the messengers of Lord Ram, and he is the source of power for all of you, and you can do anything. Now you can question me that I was talking that no two persons can have the same unique identification numbers, but they had unique identification numbers. That is, their strengths were different, their talents were different, but I am saying that they all belonged to the same Father, that is Lord Ram, who was God himself, and so they could use his powers to achieve great success, because with our own mere powers we cannot achieve big things, but with God's power we can also achieve that which is not even imaginable. And now I will also give you some examples which are very unique, and they are related to Lord Ram, because you must know that how Lord Ram compares the people that come close to him. So we see that when Hanumanji, you all must be knowing Hanumanji, so when Hanumanji meets Lord Ram for the first time, Lord Ram compares him to be twice as dear than his own brother Lakshman. Just imagine, Hanumanji has met him just now, but he says that you are dear to me twice as my brother Lakshman. Lord Ram compares monkey to his dearest brother Bharat and says to the monkeys that you all are twice as dear to me than my brother Bharat. He also compares Sugriv to Bharat and says that you are also twice as dear to me as Bharat. And that is when Sugriv had even forgotten his promise to search for Sita ji. When Bali was killed, Sugriv got the throne, he got his wife back, he got the kingdom, he got himself indulged in all the pleasures, and he even forgot about what mission he had to accomplish. And we can easily understand that this comparison is not realistic, because not the monkeys are like Bharatji, or Sugriv had no quality as Bharatji, or when Lord Ram has met Hanumanji for the first time, he doesn't know anything about him. So the real comparisons are not realistic at all. But it shows the love that Lord Ram has for others, and this makes them feel loved. It makes them feel desirable. It makes them feel powerful. It makes them feel that they have high self-esteem, and they touch new heights of performance and achievements. They are the best of their lives. So you see, that's how we should be inspired. And when we are talking about Lord Ram, he compares Jatayu. Jatayu was the vulture. He was the brother of the vulture Sampati, whom I just mentioned. So Lord Ram compares Jatayu, whose feathers were cut by Ravan. When Ravan was taking Sita ji by aerial route, Jatayu challenges him. The mighty Ravan, he challenges him, and then Ravan, after Jatayu is able to give him a good fight, in the end Ravan cuts his feather and Jatayu falls on the ground. And Lord Ram compares Jatayu to his own father, that is Dashrath, and gives him the same respect and love. And when Jatayu ji dies, then Lord Ram performs his last rites as he would have done for his own father Dashrath. And let me tell you that Jatayu or Sampati, who were vultures, they were not very pious birds. They fed on dead bodies. There was nothing good about them. But you can see that Lord Ram compares to him to such an high extent. And before Sita ji was abducted, Lord Ram stayed in Dandakvan near the place where Jatayu lived, and he showed his love and respect to Jatayu ji, just like a son would do for his father. And that made Jatayu so fearless, because he got the love and respect and power of God himself. It made him so fearless that he challenged the mighty Ravan, in front of whom all the deities bowed down with their folded hands. Even Hanumanji's father was always present in the courtroom of Ravan with folded hands. And now, I know it has been a big long video, but now I will take the last example. I have so many examples which I have in mind, but it is said that there is no end to these stories about God. So we will cover as much as we can and as much as you can tolerate in one go. So now the last example is when someone is comparing two people. So here we can have 3 or 4 characters. There are 2 people who are being compared. So I can compare 2 people in my mind, or I can have someone else who I am talking to, and then we can compare 2 other people. So we see that Lakshmanji, who is Lord Ram's younger brother, so when all these incidents were happening, when Sugriv had forgotten that he had to go to find Sita ji, then Lakshmanji indirectly reminds of Sugriv by saying to Lord Ram that, don't you ever remember Jatayu ji? So Lord Ram gets so emotional. But the purpose of Lakshman ji was to indirectly remind Lord Ram that, see, there was this vulture Jatayu who single-handedly faced Ravana. He was an old vulture with not so much strength or any help with him, but still he challenged the mighty Ravan. And see this Sugriv, who has got his kingdom, his army, everything, but still he has been indulging in the material pleasures, and he has no intention to start on with his mission. Then what is the reaction of Lord Ram? Lord Ram still points out Sugriev's unique qualities which actually are not realistic, because Lord Ram doesn't compare based on the person's qualities. He compares out of his own nature. So he is unable to see faults in others. So he glorifies the weaknesses of Sugriv by telling how those weaknesses are indeed his qualities. So we see that what is the end result of all of this, that Sugriv is transformed and he uses all his might and power and intention to find Sita ji. The changes come from within and not superficially. So, what is the moral of the story? That watch your intentions. So, we see that those two persons are not even present in the scene where they are being compared. So, intentions matter, because it is possible that if they were there in the scenes, one could have said good things about them or welcomed them or shown respect to them, but in the heart he might not feel the same way. So the intentions are very, very important. And it also reminds us that we should not compare with a selfish attitude as to who is more beneficial for us. Because we should not weigh everyone on the same parameters and should focus on their unique individual qualities, and this will empower them and not make them feel inferior when he is compared on the same parameters with someone else, because everyone, as I told you, is unique and is special. So guys, I know this video is long, but please let me know that aren't these stories very interesting? They also give you a vision how to see things deeply, and yeah, I myself enjoyed this session too much, and I hope you must have also enjoyed it. And let me know which next topic you want me to discuss, and I will try to do my best, and I will meet you in the next video. Till then, bye. Jai Siya Ram.